Prologue. Dragons and the Land. Dawn spilled itself carelessly, as if the sun had tipped its cup and let the light run down the ribs of the hills. Mist clung to the river like a shawl forgotten at a feast. Smoke lifted from cook fires in narrow blue ropes. Roosters auditioned for importance. Two shadows crossed the land, unhurried and long. The elder dragon did not so much fly as lean on the wind. His wings were broad, weathered, edged like old knives that had done more carving than killing. The scales along his back had dulled to a patient steel. Only the membranes of his wings held the old gleam, thin as stained glass. Beside him, the younger kept time with the sky, all shine and eagerness, his emerald plates flashing like fresh leaves after rain. Every fifth wing beat he added another, just in case the heavens decided to drop him out of mischief.
"Too much flap,"
the elder said without looking, voice a low instrument that made the air itself seem hollow and resonant.
"Let the air carry you. It has nowhere better to be."
The younger tried to float more and work less. He immediately lost a handspan of height, panicked, and thumped his wings back into the conversation.
"I am letting it carry me,"
he protested, breathless.
"I'm simply helping."
Which meant both yes and not at all. Below, they were already stories. A farmer halfway through, sharpening his scythe, froze with the whetstone in the air. The blade continued ringing a long, faint note against the morning. 3 boys on a lane pointed so hard their arms seemed likely to fly off. In a temple courtyard, a bell began to toll, too fast to be holy. Dogs shouted at the sky. Chickens reconsidered the concept of outside. The younger craned his neck. From this height the world looked both made and making. Fields stitched into squares, roads drawn by a hand that couldn't hold a straight line, a river turning extravagance into geometry.
"Look, ants with roofs."
"Ants with opinions. They will have something to say about this."
As if summoned, men and women began to say things indeed. A woman hauling water dropped her buckets, then kicked one toward her door with brusque practicality, shouting for her child by name. A scribe in a narrow street held his parchment to his chest like a shield. A baker came outside with a peel still in his hand, flour fogging the air around his head, mouth open mid-blessing or mid-curse. An old man did not run. He simply took off his hat, an act that put both fear and hospitality in the same gesture, and looked up, eyes stung by the light.
"Do they know we are not here for them?"
"They know only that the sky is moving, and that it has teeth."
They cleared the town and slid over fields that had been combed by 1,000 hands. Boundaries announced themselves in colour rather than fences, oat here, barley there, orchard beyond. The river curved to meet them, silver and self-satisfied, pretending it had never been anything so clumsy as rain. A fisher on the bank stood up in his little boat, forgot balance exists, and sat down again more rapidly than he'd stood. His hat went first, a small dignified funeral.
"Do you see that bend?"
the elder asked, flicking his muzzle toward a place where the water elbowed the bank and bullied a stand of willow into concession.
"There's a story there.
"What kind?"
The kind that pretends to be about stones and turns out to be about bones."
His tone suggested he was talking to himself as much as to his companion. Then he let the river fall behind and spoke no more of it. The sky made an easy hallway and they drifted it. The wind smelled of wet soil and old smoke. Somewhere far off a shepherd's flute climbed and fell, untidy and earnest. The elder tilted, and the younger matched the tilt, and the country below unfolded like a map whose edges didn't matter. Human voices rose and were swallowed by the distance. "Inside! Inside!" called a woman with a braid thick enough to be its own person. "In the name of the saints," said a man who had not spoken that name in months. A boy with a wooden sword struck a gallant pose against a wall, then thought better of it and slid behind a barrel. The sword clutched like a secret. In the market, the rumour moved faster than anyone's legs. 2 dragons, 2 dragons, 2, so that people in a street the dragons had not yet reached were already pointing at a sky not yet occupied. On a crest of land a hill rose, round-shouldered and grass-fat. The elder's gaze rested there longer than on the rest of the morning. Even from this height he saw the way the wind treated the summit differently, how the long blades bent in a ring as though remembering weight.
"That too. There is song under that hill."
The younger stretched his neck, listening. He heard only wind. Still, something in the elder's voice made him imagine a choir with soil in its throat and a rhythm measured by roots. He wanted to ask, but the elder's eyes were far away. They passed over a cluster of houses that had never quite agreed to be a town. Someone there had found a horn. It made a noise that only a horn can love. In response, a few men dragged a tarp off a long, low shape in a yard. Iron flashed, and the telltale arc of a counterweight gave the lie to the place's insignificance. The machine looked both proud and tired, like a veteran in a dress uniform that didn't quite fit anymore. The younger's heart rattled his ribs.
Do you see?
I see.
The elder said mildly, banking so that the angle of their wings nudged them higher. The men below worked faster, each movement loud with the shared language of hurry. Someone fumbled, someone shouted, someone pointed, someone prayed. The counterweight did not rise fast enough. By the time the machine remembered what it was, there was no one left in reach for it to throw at.
They keep such things.
The younger said, half scandalized and half admiring.
They keep stories with handles. It comforts them to think they can push back the sky.
They skated the edge of a cloud that had forgotten its own edges. Air beaded on the younger's whiskers. He shook his head and tasted rain. The cloud smelled like a stone spring in the inside of a cave. They were quiet there, sound wrapped in white. When they dropped out the other side, the world had changed its arrangement of small disasters. On a road, a merchant had upended his cart in his haste, melons rolling like coins spilled from a god's pocket. 2 monks on a bridge knelt and made careful signs with their fingers, precision fighting with panic. A woman on a rooftop beat a rug 3 times harder than rug beating requires. Each thud said, "I cannot do anything else, so I will do this very well." A child in a doorway peered with honest, terrible excitement, the kind that would turn into bragging later, and a remembered hush when she was older, and telling the same story to someone even younger. The younger's attention flitted and returned, curious and greedy.
They're so particular.
They are specialists. Each of them is the only one of themselves.
And yet all of them are doing the same thing, looking up.
Ah,
The elder's mouth did something like a smile.
yes.
The ground tipped toward the sea, though the sea itself was still a rumour on the air. Between them and the water lay a long seam of broken white, ruins squared and clean, the kind that never quite give in to plants or rain. They were quiet even from here, and their quiet had a shape to it.
Those walls!
Yes, they were bright once, and proud. Someone cut dragons into their gates, and for a while the people inside told themselves that meant they were known by what they feared.
He let the sentence trail into the open.
It did not save them.
They were both silent. Below, a man and a girl were standing on one of the fallen lintels. The man pointed up, and the girl nodded with grave, fierce solemnity, as if agreeing to a pact. When the elder angled their course, the man lifted an arm as if to throw something. He did throw, some sliver of useless metal or bravado. It fell short the way small angers fall short when the object is too far away to hit, yet too close to ignore.
Hi.
The elder murmured, and they went higher. Not disdain, courtesy. The land softened, the greens deepening, the trees growing together into something older and less convinced about letting roads through. Beehives sorted themselves into lines behind a cottage. Their keepers stared up with veils lifted. A woman in a field of flax did not run. She bowed once, a movement that held neither worship nor defiance, only acknowledgement. By a stream, a man tugged a net in with one hand and crossed himself with the other, resolving his contradictions neatly.
Do they always shake?
Not always. Some are too tired to tremble. Some are too young. Some are too old. Some have just decided that if a day contains dragons, it should also contain a patch mended, a loaf baked, a prayer said, a defiance shouted, a laugh had.
He sounded almost indulgent.
They are opinionated about their lives.
They rode a thermal until the fields became patterns, and the patterns became whispered arguments between colours. From up here, the world looked like it had made sense on purpose. A flock of swifts scribbled itself under them, black ink crossing a page. They scattered with professional annoyance and reassembled at once because to be a swift is to reassemble.
Do you remember the coast where the lanterns lined the water?
The elder asked, more to the air than to his companion. The younger shook his head, and the elder spoke half a sentence, changed his mind and put it back in his throat to age a little longer.
Another time.
And the younger, who's learning patience by resisting it, nodded. They passed a ridge where the wind had opinions of its own, coming hard from one side and then harder from the other, like cousins arguing which is the truer family. The younger angled wrong, and the gust slid him a dragon length, toward a stand of black pines. He yelped, corrected, pretended he hadn't yelped.
Air is a river that forgot to lie down. Treat it as such.
I would treat it better if it would decide where it's going.
That is not its way.
Beneath them, the human morning continued to sort itself around the phenomenon of two dragons. In one place, a priest and a blacksmith argued about whether this was omen or weather. In another, a group of lads discovered they could dare one another into bolder and bolder shouts. Their courage bloomed a size too big, like a tunic worn before the child has grown. In a third, a grandmother told a toddler that the stories were real after all and that this is why one must finish one's porridge. The toddler, who had already finished his porridge, felt cheated of leverage. A line of soldiers jogged into a courtyard and looked up with their mouths doing the arithmetic of distance and reach. Someone barked orders, someone else dropped a spear, another picked it up because that is what you do. They skirted the courtyard in a lazy arc. The elder's eyes glanced over the iron and the intent as one glances over a line of ants carrying a dead moth. Not scorn, attention scaled to hazard.
You don't like being above them.
The younger said suddenly. He had noticed the elder's small corrections, the way he trimmed their path to avoid the busiest panic.
But you stay above them anyway.
I prefer not to frighten what need not be frightened. And yet the sky is an honest place for dragons. We belong more to this than to their streets. If we walk their lanes and rooflines, we turn every glance into a shout.
So we are merciful.
We are practical.
The younger heard the smile that did not reach the elder's mouth. A long meadow unrolled beneath them like a fresh-made bed. The wind combed it one way and then the other, laying and lifting the grass in a pattern that looked like writing, in a language you could almost read if you squinted. The elder's gaze lingered again.
You have a face you make when you are looking at a memory. You are making it.
Am I?
You are.
Then I suspect we will arrive at the place where I will tell you a story, whether you asked for one or not.
I am asking for one.
The younger said quickly before the place could be lost to silence. He looked down, greedy for every clue, the kink in the river there, the hill that held its breath here, the white lines of ruins that refused to be done, the distant smear of sea where the land ran out of its own arguments and agreed to be flat. Everywhere he looked, people were reacting to two dragons with the common choreography of uncommon days.
Look how quickly they make the same moment different. Some run, some kneel, some fetch tools, some fetch stories. Some pretend they do not see and will tell their grandchildren they look the sky in the eye.
Do they ever wave?
Sometimes.
As if summoned by the word, a child in a vegetable patch lifted both arms and windmilled them madly, all elbows and joy. Her grandmother slapped those hands down on instinct, then, embarrassed at herself, lifted one hand slowly, cautiously, and waved as well. The child squealed. The grandmother pretended she'd only been adjusting a shawl, and both of them would later deny it to the girl's stern aunt. The two dragons curved toward a height where earth gave way to stone, and stone practiced for mountains. On the far side of that rise the river would widen into ambition, and the elder's breath had already taken on the sound of a tale settling in. The younger, who knew enough now to recognize the throat-clearing of a century, felt his own breath slow. He watched the world below assemble its courage into tools, bells and spears and shouted prayers and laughter. He watched smoke from 1,000 chimneys lay itself in long threads that frayed and vanished. He waited. The elder drew in a long, thoughtful lungful of wind. His voice, when it came, had the weight of a stone falling into deep water.
You asked what they are like, what men are. I have flown over them longer than their histories remember themselves. I have watched them build with their bones and sing to their dead and try to trap the dark with 1,000,000 small lights. If you have time, I have stories.
I have the sky.
Which is a dragon's way of saying yes.
Then listen. It begins at a bend where floods come like uninvited relatives, and it does not begin there at all.
The younger smiled without meaning to.
What are they truly like?
He asked. This time the question was full measure, not the easy curiosity from earlier. He wanted the kind of answer that took the length of a day to finish, and still left the taste of years in the mouth. The elder held the silence just long enough to make it valuable, and then, over a river that pretended innocence and a country that pretended permanence, and a people who could not help but look up, the elder began.